Rachel New, Dating and Relationships Coach. I'm going to talk to you today about your messaging, and I'm going to give you 3 easy tips to help you improve your messaging experiences on dating apps. So perhaps you are not getting replies to your messages, perhaps the messaging isn't going anywhere. If you have any issues with your messaging, then my 3 tips could help. So my first tip is, what is the purpose of your messaging? What are you hoping as the outcome? Do you want it just to be a nice chat in the evening where you get to know somebody and feel a bit less lonely? Or to practice your conversation skills? Or perhaps you're just exploring dating for the first time and you're not really sure about what you want. In those situations, your messaging is possibly going to be not very satisfying because you don't really know what you want the outcome to be. You haven't actually defined what successful messaging is. So if you are looking for your messaging to lead to a date, that is a specific outcome and that will make your dating more purposeful. So think about, what's the purpose of your dating? Try to be intentional about your messaging and therefore try to have some kind of shape to your messaging. So a bit like a narrative in a story, you would want the messaging to move on and not to stay still. So each time you have a new message or a new conversation, it's moving on towards actually deciding to go on a date. So tip number 1, make your messaging more purposeful and think about what you want the outcome to be, move towards that with your messaging. So my second tip for improving your messaging is to be less like an information service. So sometimes when people are messaging, they might get asked a question like, tell me about the yoga class that you go to. Perhaps yoga's in your profile. And so that's a really good question, following up on something that's in your profile, but how do you go about answering that? Some people like to give a very long and comprehensive answer, telling them everything they need to know about yoga, but that is not really what's required here. What you need to do with your messaging is to use each question as a vehicle to try and show off the bits about yourself that you want the other person to appreciate. So think about how you can use that question as a vehicle to answer the things that they may be wondering about you. Do they want you to be exciting and energetic, for example? So can you display that in your answer? So give short answers, leave them wanting more, because then you can always say, let's discuss this further when we meet. Don't give long, comprehensive answers like an information service. Be a bit intriguing, should try to show off the different characteristics of yourself that you would want the other person to appreciate. And my third tip is to try and convey trust and warmth in your messaging. These are some key attributes that we know from research people are looking for when they're messaging to decide, can I go on a date with this person? That's really the question that's in the back of our minds when we're messaging. Do I trust this person to go on a date? Would I feel that I could be myself with them? Do they make me feel good about myself? So trust and warmth are 2 good ways to try and convey all of those things. And you can do that through the language that you use. So think about the words. Are they conveying trust and warmth? Are you coming across as somebody who's safe to talk to, who they can be sure of how they're going to respond? If they tell them something personal, for example, would they feel that they could be comfortable to tell you something? And warmth, emojis are good for warmth, and just think about using some nice warm words in the messaging. Even talking about sitting in a pub by a cosy fire is a good way of generating that idea of warmth in somebody else's mind. So trust and warmth. And research also shows that we are more likely to trust people who belong to some of our in-groups. So in social psychology, there's a lot of very well-established, robust research that shows that we belong to lots of different groups. So perhaps the group of or people who share our gender or our job or where we live, or people that like the same things as us, or perhaps level of education. There's lots of different groups that we belong to, lots of different identities that we have. And if we feel that the other person shares some of those identities, then we'll be more likely to trust them. So, if you both like yoga, then great, you've got that overlapping identity and you're automatically going to feel a little bit more trust towards the person. Just like if you discover that you both do the same job, you immediately understand each other, you kind of categorise the other person as being a little bit more like you, and therefore it's easier to trust them. So trust and warmth, and you can do that partly through overlapping identities. So those are my 3 tips to improve your messaging. First of all, to be more intentional and purposeful and give a shape to your messaging. Secondly, to not be an information service, giving long and comprehensive answers but short, intriguing ones, which can be followed up when you actually meet. And thirdly, to try and convey trust and warmth through overlapping identities. So there are 3 evidence-based messaging tips which are practical, easy to apply, and will hopefully give you better messaging experiences and more likely to lead to the outcome that you want. Or you may decide you're not right for each other and therefore you're not going to go on a date, but at least the messaging has helped to clarify that. So a messaging not leading to a date is not a failure. It could just be that your messaging has been very effective and revealing that you're not right for each other to go on a date with. So don't get despondent. I would say probably 1 in 10 messaging conversations leads to an actual date. So keep going, keep trying out creative, interesting, fun messages, and let me know how you get on.